Hello, and welcome back. This is Great Big History Podcast. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari. We continue our 10 questions series into the 20th century with Disney princesses and American feminism. So how is feminism discussed? Because it's not just one thing, and it changes over time, and we see this in Disney movies and Disney princesses. And how we discuss feminism is in waves. It crests in an achievement, then it recedes, then it renews. So we have the first wave. It's basically 19th century, 18th century to the 1920s. And this is voting and political rights. This is the rights of women in the French Revolution. This is Susan B. Anthony. This is voting rights, political rights. And by the 1920s, birth control, female medical rights. That's what the first wave was dedicated to. And once it kind of won those rights by the 1920s, it fractured into a more conservative wing, a more liberal wing. And with the Great Depression, it receded into a conservatism. Second wave feminism comes after the Second World War and is basically from the 1950s to the 1980s. And we see this in employment. The Betty Friedan and the feminine mystique, the desire for women to have economic independence from their husbands or their fathers or from any man, the right to divorce. Overwhelmingly, the second wave is dedicated to economics, freedom to live separately, independently of the men around them. The third wave, the 1990s through 2000, roughly 2010, is diversity and individualism. It's trying to fix the problems of second wave feminism. Second wave feminism was highly dependent on wealthier, college-educated women. Poor women had always worked, but it wasn't about unionizing those women. Or women had been getting divorced because their marriages broke down. If they weren't officially divorced, plenty of their husbands took off. You know, they were divorced by convenience, divorced by distance. And so this is not, for a lot of women, the Kramer versus Kramer storyline didn't apply. The Working Girl movie from the 1980s didn't apply. And third wave feminism, the feminism that was when I was in college, was trying to fix those problems, but also add in new peoples, Native Americans, immigrants, African American women. It was also trying to defend itself from the conservatism of the 1980s. The problem for third wave feminism is what did it want? What was its goal? First wave feminism had the 19th Amendment, voting rights. The second wave had female employment, and then once you got employed, it was moving into the managerial levels. It was equal pay. Third wave feminism was as much about defending that from conservatism and adding new peoples, basically, but also adding individual choice. What if you didn't want this? Well, you could still be a feminist. Feminism was not a dirty word. Feminism was simply you wanted women to be able to live the life they wanted to live. And if you wanted to be a happy wife living in the countryside with 6 kids, Well, third wave feminism said that's fine for you. You could do that too. Fourth wave feminism, the feminism of now, of the 2020s, is anti sexual abuse, especially things older women shrug at. This is um, things, um, well, fourth wave feminism, the feminism of now, has as one of its major themes anti sexual abuse, anti sexual harassment. In fact, several of the Oscar winner movies were exactly on this topic. These are things that older women shrugged at. The idea that your boss sexually harassed you. Well, in the 1960s, there's plays about that. It's part of being in the business world. Mad Men, of course, the secretaries are sleeping with their bosses. They wanted to keep their jobs, and their boss was a way of promotion. And so things that women of second wave or even third wave feminism considered to be normal or normalized is now seen as abusive. Maybe that shouldn't have happened to you. So there's a theme of empowerment versus marginalization, and an emphasis on the full female experience, the idea of all the things women do, or all the things women want to do, is part of that now. Now, fourth wave feminism is being formed. It's being argued now. It's being debated now. So I'm giving you a kind of thematic idea of what it discusses, but it may end up with lots of other things. It may be something completely different in the end. So it's being formed now. The wave is coming now. It's cresting now. So then, how do Disney princesses reflect feminism? Well, why do a lecture and use Disney princesses other than like to try to be cute and have a thing that, like, I'm hoping almost all of you who are listening to this have seen a Disney princess movie. So how does Disney princesses reflect feminism? Well, by being a generation behind. They look conservative, and they especially focus on marriage and family. And so they get a reputation of being conservative and not with it and not modern and not feminist enough. But the reason why is the people who are making feminism, who are debating feminism, the people who are writing about it and arguing about it and creating it are women in their teens, 20s, and 30s. But the people who are making the movie are people's in their 40s and 50s and maybe older who represent the older wave of feminism. So the critique is coming from the people who are expressing their ideas of the modern wave, people in their 20s. But the people who are making the movie are making a movie that represents the feminism of their 20s when they were growing up, as they understand feminism. So they're a generation kind of behind in terms of their feminism. And so they look conservative. And I remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, after a string of Disney princess movies, there were all of these articles about how conservative, how retro, how anti-female Disney princess movies are. And a lot of that argument was based in that they're not reflecting the women of now. And part of the issue is that critique is exactly true. But the reason they're not reflecting the women of now is because the people who are making the movie, are of the previous generation of feminism. So let's look at the feminism in Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty, Aurora's feminism. What kind of feminism do they have? Well, they have a similar form. They all desire a companionship in marriage, a husband to be less a provider and more an emotional partner. And that was new. That was new for marriage, for desiring a marriage in the 30s to 40s to 50s. Because marriage wasn't about personal happiness for the older generation of women. It was about economic safety. It was about finding someone who would economically take care of you. And we all have stories in our family histories of people who got married who didn't really like each other, but they got married because they, quote, had to get married. Well, the Disney princesses are looking for love. They're looking for a companion in their marriage. They're looking for a partner. Now, not a economically equal partner, not a politically equal partner, but a relationship, a companion equal partner. All the women work to help their family, and none of them do it for pay. None of them do it for a job. Sleeping Beauty takes it spends a chunk of the movie taking care of the cottage for her fairy godmothers. Cinderella takes care of her evil stepmom and her stepsisters, doing the laundry, bringing breakfast. And Snow White takes it upon herself to clean up for the 7 dwarves while they're at work. All 3 women also have negative relationships with older but still sexual women. The Wicked Witch tries to kill Snow White multiple times. The evil stepmother is evil to Cindy and locks her essentially away in the attic. Maleficent is going to kill Aurora, puts her to sleep. Aurora has to flee for her own safety. Also notice all 3 women, good relationships to animals, birds and small mammals. That shows that they're nice. These are nice girls. They're teenage women, and they have good hearts. Why? Because animals like them, and they like animals. Whether it's the mice with Cinderella, all of the woodland mammals with Snow White, the birds for Aurora. How does Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Aurora interact with the world? They all need help from platonic sources. They are not independent women. Snow White needs the 7 dwarves. Cinderella needs a pear-shaped post-menopausal godmother. That shows she's good. She's nice. She's sweet. That's why her pear shape is what says to the audience she's a good magic user. As opposed to Maleficent, who is all straight and jagged lines, very lean, very tall. Aurora has three pear-shaped menopausal fairies. These are not women they're in competition with. So they all need help from a platonic source, right? The most kind of sexual thing that happens is Snow White kisses Dopey on the head, on his bald head, right? And he blushes. Yeah, that's like the most erotic thing that happens. until the princes show up. And even those are not sexual on screen. But they get help from these platonic sources, the seven dwarves, the godmother, and the fairies. They have a goodness of the princess is expressed by the friendship to animals. They interact with the natural world. We kind of already discussed this. It shows their goodness. If harmless little animals are their friends and are helping these girls, then they must be good. It's a traditional relationship to nature. Good people have a good relationship to nature. Bad people don't. Notice in Bambi, man is the villain. And we never see man. But it's man who causes the fire. It's man who shoots Bambi's mother. It's man who is the villain of Bambi, the enemy that lurks out there in the shadow. Meanwhile, in the princess movies, the princesses have a good relationship, a friendly relationship with the animals. In fact, for Cinderella, she civilizes the mice by giving them clothes, by giving them names. Gus, Gus, Gus. Right? She civilizes them. Finally, men desire these princesses for their qualities, not for their wealth. Snow White sings with Prince Charming. Cindy dances and talks all night with this charming stranger. She doesn't know that he's the prince at all. In fact, when the clock strikes midnight, she's like, oh, I've spent all night dancing. I was supposed to meet the prince. Aurora sings and dances with Philip while in hiding, not knowing that that's Philip. The man who her parents, the son of her parents' best friends. You know, the man she's supposed to be engaged to. She doesn't know that's him. So, their interaction with the world is platonic and good and friendly. And it shows off their qualities. Okay, how does this change in the 1990s? There was a long time between princesses, which kind of is going to seem insane today. But from 1951 to 1989, there wasn't a princess movie. It's Aurora, then Ariel. And when the princess movies come back, they're musicals, they're Broadway shows on screen. Rather than a movie, a dramatic movie with some songs put in, it's now the music drives the plot. So it's new. It's a new way of doing the movies. It's a new way of telling the story. And they're going to be new princesses. These princesses are now knowers. They want to experience a bigger world. There's Ariel, who sings Part of Your World. That's human anthropology. She wants to understand humans. She's looking at all of this stuff that humans make, humans have, humans are, and wants to be part of that, wants to understand it. Belle is a reader. The most seductive thing that Beast does is give her a library. Flat out sings, I want something more than this provincial life. I want to be bigger than this town in France. I'm better than this. Jasmine sings about having a whole new world. And she explores the world like Buddha, even though, yes, she's Muslim, but like Buddha, she leaves the palace to go out and hang out with the poor people. They also choose companionship marriage. Literally, Jasmine says, I choose him. But we see this also with Pocahontas. We see this in Esmeralda is not a princess, by the way. She's way too sexy to be a princess. In Hunchback of Notre Dame. In fact, there's an entire song by a priest about his sexual desire for Esmeralda. So he wants her not for her qualities, but for her body. And her rejection of him makes him a murderous, drives him to murder. So that is not a princess quality. Esmeralda is a lot of things, but a Disney princess she is not. And if she was, it would be a completely different movie. Take a look at Frozen, how the women interact with the men there, and then look at Esmeralda. But I go with the big three: Ariel, Belle, and Jasmine. And Jasmine, I choose him. Belle literally goes back to save the beast from the invasion, from the siege, and then she kisses him at the end. Ariel leaves her father, leaves her sisters, leaves her entire home, grows legs in order to be with Eric. And then chooses to leave her entire life to join his life, to join her husband's life. So they still want companionship marriage. They still want a relationship. They still want love. So how did the Disney princesses and America reflect the 1990s? And the 1990s and Disney princesses? Well, women had entered the workforce in large numbers in the 60s and the 70s. And by the 90s, they were pulling ahead in education. In fact, by 2008, women would outnumber men by 41% in grad schools. And if you're watching the video, there's a whole list of arts and humanities. It's 52% women. Biology and agricultural science, 52% women. Business, 53% men, 46% business. And you would think that's bigger. Education is 70% women. Engineering is 75% men. But health and medical services, 71% women. And these are PhDs, these are doctoral degrees. Where prior to 1960, pretty much all of these would have been almost all men. There'd be very few women, single digit kind of percentages. And now in lots of fields, women vastly outnumber men in getting degrees. So by the 1990s, they're entering educated but non-traditional occupations: doctors, journalists, researchers, administrators. Women are in the 60s, they were entering the workforce. By the 90s, they're entering not only as the secretary and the low-level workers, they're now entering into highly educated and non-traditional female jobs. With that comes backlash. With that comes conservative backlash from men and from conservative society. And we see this in Susan Faluti's book, Backlash. Now, when I was in college, that book, Backlash, was on every bookshelf. Every female student I knew in college had Backlash on their bookshelf. And it was a good book to have. It's Susan Faluti's kind of classic book. It's their great book. If you haven't read it, you really should. And it's the idea that any kind of female liberal success creates a conservative reaction against the changing gender norms. So there's always a conservative backlash. And you're seeing this now. You're seeing this right now with the attacks on abortion, the attacks on birth control pills, the attacks on trans people, trans women, trans men, that any kind of liberal success for women, for females, creates this conservative reaction. How are you going to keep them married on the farm when they're working in Paris, kind of a way to think about it. You know, we even see this in the movies, this kind of backlash. Belle blames herself for Gaston leading an army against Beast's castle. And Beast's death, she literally says, "This is all my fault." She blames herself. If she had never gone to the castle, if she had just married Gaston, nothing bad would have happened to Beast. Now, he'd never get to be a human at the end, but she doesn't know that until it happens. But she blames herself. There's your backlash. That it's in part of the success. Belle leaves home. That comes the backlash. Gaston is, I will bring her back. I will get her back. Ariel signs a legal contract for love. Triton, her dad, sacrifices himself to save her. And that sacrifice could destroy the world. Literally. By letting Ursula have Triton's crown and Trident, she now controls the seas, and she can murder everybody who lives by the oceans. She can murder all the people in the seas too, all the mer people. Right? So Ariel has this moment of liberal success. She leaves home. She meets the man of her dreams. The man of her dreams falls in love with her. And by doing that, she could destroy the world. Well, there's your backlash. If she had just stayed home like her sisters, then the world wouldn't be on the verge of destruction. Her father wouldn't have to sacrifice himself to save her. Everything would have been okay if she just stayed home. Notice Hallmark Christmas movies, again, about bringing women back. They're in the city, they're in college, they're doing these liberal things, they're making money, but they're not happy. They're not fulfilled. And when will they be fulfilled? When they give up all of that liberal stuff and come home and become a wife and a mom. And maybe a partner in their husband's carpentry business, or welding business, or aluminum siding business. She becomes the woman who answers the phone. Right? She becomes her husband's secretary. And so you see that backlash in the movies, even in the liberal movies, there's the backlash built into it. And that's part of Susan Flutie's argument, is that it's built in. That whenever you have the one, you gain the other. What about Disney princesses and feminism in 2010s? Well, these are going to be pathfinders. These are self-directed women choosing their own path. They're going to let it go. They're going to have dreams. They're going to save their people. So we see them each choose to go on an adventure. They have things they want, and they start to take the steps to do them. So while the original princesses, Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora, needed male help along the way, these are women who are going to do things with or without male help. Rapunzel is the one that relies on men the most, but she's still doing what she wants to do. Elsa relies on men the least, which has made her kind of a lesbian icon. And so, but they're still going to do what they want to do. They're going to let it go. They're going to have their dreams. They're going to see the lanterns. They're going to save their people. They also save men as much as are saved by them. Tiana is going to save Naveen's soul. Moana saves Maui from his eternal prison and his PTSD because gods can do everything but float. He needs a boat. And Rapunzel saves Flynn Rider from his life of crime. Flynn is not a nice guy. And now he's a character at Disney World that you could have your picture taken with. That's Rapunzel doing that. And Anna, Uncle Christopher, Anna, as I have been told many, many times. Anna. Anna saves Kristoff from, quote, this is in the song, his thing with the reindeer that's a little outside of nature's laws. Kristoff, this relationship is with trolls and with a reindeer. And it is Anna, Uncle Christopher, it's Anna, who brings him back to heteronormative masculinity. He's out there in the woods. He's peeing in the woods. He doesn't take a bath. He's living with his reindeer. And it's Anna that brings him back to cultured human civilization with her heteronormative relationship. Now, they don't get married. It's not a sexual relationship. I mean, it may have a little crush in it, but it's not a sexual relationship. It doesn't have, say, the passion of Cinderella and the Prince. And it doesn't have the kind of I'll fight for you spark of Belle and the Beast, at least until the end, until Kristoff kind of will fight for Anna. But it's Anna bringing Kristoff out from the wilderness into heteronormative masculinity. So she saves him as well. And so on their adventures, they pick up men who are themselves kind of broken. This is a long way from the Prince Charmings, who are kind of charming. They're kind of perfect. They're balleros. You know, ballerina is a female dancer, and a bolero is a male one. They're boleros. They're very lithe, and they're light, and they're princes, and Philip is that, but then Philip will fight a dragon with the aid of a bunch of pear-shaped postmenopausal fairies. And, you know, there's something to be said for that. But it's also, Philip's complicated in slaying the dragon because the dragon is also female sexuality, because it's Maleficent turned into this giant beast breathing fire, and he's going to slay the single older woman with, there's a lot of representation there that's complicated. But for the 2010s, Disney princesses want things, and they're going to go and try to get them. And along the way, they'll pick up men who are themselves in need of help. And they will save those men as much as be helped by them. Right? Rapunzel cannot get to the lanterns without Flynn Rider, or the horse, or Maximus himself. Well, at least it's a male name. I don't know if Maximus is drawn as a male horse, but it's a male name, and everything about Maximus is masculine as horses go. So Maui is undeniably masculine, but also severely broken. So we see these women are entering a new phase of how women relate to the world. So let's examine how women relate to the world in the 2010s through these movies. First is, adulting is hard. None can rely on the traditional nuclear family. Tiana works very hard to keep her business afloat. Elsa and Anna don't want to be queen, and their parents die when they're teens. Rapunzel is a literal prisoner, kept there by her single mom. None have a traditional nuclear family. Plus, the older generation is not always helpful. They have their own traumas. Moana's dad has PTSD. And there's a plague. Rapunzel's mom is a vampire, literally uses Rapunzel to stay youthful. Plus, there's a thing outside of the movie, which was Tangled is not Rapunzel. And Frozen was not advertised as a princess movie, which may strike you as weird, but I remember seeing the trailers. And there's not a princess in it. It's Olaf and the reindeer. I gotta tell you, I had no idea what movie it was until Let It Go became this huge sensation. And I'm like, what is that? They're like, oh, from Frozen. I'm like, the snow boy movie? And they're like, no, it's a princess movie. I'm like, who are you talking about? What are you talking about? Princess movie. I saw the trailer. There's no princess movie. There's no princesses in that. And like, it really is. So why? Why were they changing? And so there's this backlash against being too girly. Now we get a reprieve from that with Moana. Because Moana becomes Moana, right? But there's a backlash against being too girly. You need to appeal to boys. And this is a long way from the 50s, right? Where it is Snow White. That's the 30s. It is Cinderella. It is Sleeping Beauty. So by changing the name, they're obfuscating what the movie is about. So even as a princess movie, they're not advertising it as a princess movie. And that's new, because take The Little Mermaid is The Little Mermaid. Beauty and the Beast. Belle is the beauty. Her name is Beauty. Belle. The only princess movie that's not the princess movie is Aladdin. It's named after the boy. The boy is the major character, yet she's the princess. So it kind of tells you how important she is to the movie that it's become a princess movie, even though it's named after the boy. We also have, for the feminism of the 2010s, the intersectionality of race, experience, position, and wants. All of these things, what all intersectionality means is all of these things coming together. It's a fancy academic word that just means multiple different topics that interact with each other. What does that show? It shows that women are under pressure in a multitude of ways. There are minefields everywhere. What about Girlhood and Disney princesses? Well, it's complicated. Because Disney princesses became a $5 billion industry. And it's probably more. It was $5 billion back in the early 2000s, in the noughts, as we call them. There's a whole procedure on how do you become a princess. Becoming a Disney princess, having a Disney animated princess movie made about you is a big deal now. And it has become, in some ways, the definition of girlhood. In some years, over 90% of girls ages 3 to 6 dress as Halloween, dress as princesses during Halloween. Dress as Halloween. They dress as princesses for Halloween. And Disney princesses have become a definition of girlhood. In some years, girls ages 3 to 6, over 90% dress up as princesses for Halloween. I've seen it in my own family. The question is not, are you going as a princess? The question is, which princess are you going as? I have gone to Disney World with family and watched people pluck down $200 for their daughters at the Bibbity Boppity boutique to have the entire princess experience. Which brings us to the next section. The complications. Okay, well, there's the princess aspect to it, and there's the Disney aspect to it, but it's all fun and games. It's expensive. Official Disney merch is only really open to the well-off. It's expensive. Not everybody can go to Disney World. Not everyone who goes to Disney World can go to the Bibbity Boppity boutique. Not everybody who goes to the Bibbity Boppity boutique can drop $200 for their daughter to have a makeover. And so that we get books about this experience. Cinderella ate my daughter. And it's mothers know that princesses are not modern feminism. And so there's this guilt that you're selling out to some kind of capitalist patriarchy. That the girls want to pretend to be princesses, but you can't be a modern princess. There's no job for modern princess. You can't go to college to be one. And so it's all pretend. And so the problem with that is college-educated women know that there's a complicated relationship here between girl fantasy, girl play, and adult reality. There's also few princesses of color and or different life experiences. Poor princesses, immigrant princesses. So it's hard for some girls to identify with. They don't see themselves. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Please be safe. Take care. And I'll see you soon. Bye.